Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Occupy Fantasy MLB DFS stream. My name is Nick Marro. As always, I'm here to help you break down tonight's main slate on both DraftKings and FanDuel. I do have a window open on both sites. I got our model open here. If you're not already a member of Occupy, all the more reason to join. You get an access to all the tools you see here, as well as a single lineup builder, multi lineup builder. We also have our private Discord server where you could access our pros to help you improve your game. We also have our daily plug article where we give our best plays and kind of highlight what the model's telling you. Everything really works well together. So all the tools are very helpful, and they're even better when you kind of use them as one. Yeah, pretty big slate tonight. There's 10 games, some really strong pitching up top, some decent options in the middle, and then one really, really chalky stack up top with a few options in the middle there as well. Um, but yeah, I think we're good to go. So without further ado, let's get into it. I'll start giving kind of just a high level overview of the slate and where I'm at. But don't be shy, ask your questions. The main reason for this stream is for me to answer questions. So as we go through, I'll probably stay on for 20 minutes or so. I got a lot of building to do on the back end, but I really want to cover any questions people have going into this. So, all right, enough redundancy on that. So let's get into this slate. I mean, if we're sorting by OF index here, we see Jacob DeGrom as the top pitcher on the board. Really no surprise at all as far as that goes. Priced reasonably on both sides. We saw Andrew Heaney completely dominate this Royals lineup last night. And I'd say if Heaney can do it, I think DeGrom can as well. So very, very favorable spot here. Totally affordable. But yeah, you're going to see that reflected in the ownership. So we're seeing 53% or so over on DK. Again, that's where you're playing two pitchers, 36 on FanDuel. Um, and then yeah, I'm actually a little bit surprised to see Manoa as the number two personally. Let me sort by slate first and foremost. Got to get Garrett Cole out of there. Um, but I'm a little bit surprised to see Manoa over Otani. For me, I like Otani better. I just think he has more K upside. Manoa obviously a very talented arm, but he doesn't really have. I don't know. I mean, the K per nine has been there for him, um, but Otani is the lower team total. I think he has the higher swinging strike rate. I don't know that we have that in the model here, but for me, against Washington, I think I like Otani better. But at the same time, and in that same breath, if you go to Manoa, you're getting him at a major, major ownership discount. So if you're looking to play some chalkier bats tonight on DK, maybe don't go DeGrom Otani. That's going to be the most popular builds. DeGrom Otani Cardinals. I think a lot of people are going to be looking there. It's too easy to build. The Cardinals are just too cheap, especially over on DK. So maybe go to Manoa as a secondary option. But really, you're not getting a huge ownership discount off him from Otani. So you may want to go down to someone like Dustin May. Obviously, very high ceiling. He's looked great. Been pitching into the sixth and seventh inning, which is a big thing for him. Obviously, earlier in his career, he was limited frequently. We got other decent options today. I don't mind Kyle Wright. I think he's a little bit overpriced. Um, if I'm looking for pivots. I mean, Corbin Burns really hasn't seemed like himself, but we know what he's capable of. Don't mind him as an upside option. And then in the same game, we have Lopez and Lynn, both very, very risky compared to guys like DeGrom and Manoa. But at the same time, if I was looking to get different there, that's probably where I'd go. But for me personally on DK, I think I'd rather eat the chalk at pitcher, play two of DeGrom, Manoa, Otani. For me personally, I like DeGrom, Otani, and then try to get different with the stacks. Tons of people are going to be playing the Cardinals tonight. Just going to run a quick refresh of this. Um, so yeah, I mean, really, if you go anywhere other than St. Louis, you should already be different than most of the fields. Obviously, the Cardinals look amazing here, but at the same time, look at this aggregate ownership. I mean, we're looking at 198% over on DK, 156% aggregate ownership over on FanDuel. That's just insane. So while I do like them, and if you're playing cash games or small field stuff, you should get Cardinals in your lineup. Like, I don't know, if I was building a cash score for St. Louis, I would have four Cardinals on both sites at least, probably five over on DK. Um, but yeah, you shouldn't be able to fit the best stack like this with the two best arms. But DK, kind of asleep at the wheel as far as the pricing goes. But in large field tournaments, you're going to want to get different. And I will say this: I mean, it's obviously a great matchup for the Cardinals. Freeland hasn't been terrible though. I think the main issue, and I think why he's getting such crazy ownership today, is he's due for major regression. Through his first two starts, he has a 189 BABIP, and that means the ball's hit and play. Hitters are just seeing a 189 batting average on those, and I mean, he's usually a pretty decent pitch to contact arm, but at the same time, there's just certainly going to be regression that we see there. So just pulling up the chat now, checking out some of the questions. Sub right Cape, how's it going, Zach Cherry? Good to see both you guys in here. Um, but yeah, let's start talking about some of these secondary stacks. Because, like I said, I'd rather eat chalk pitcher with DeGrom, Otani, maybe some Manoa, than go too down and try to get too cute at that position. I'd rather do it at these stacks. And Zach brings up a couple of good ones here. He's got Braves or Jays that he's mentioning. Let's take a look at each of these teams where they're ranking. So if we sort by OF ranking first, I mean, we see the Jays a little bit down the list, the Braves as well. Just I get another monitor up where I'm looking at lineups and matchups. So if you see me looking back and forth, that's why. So the Jays, obviously, really good option here. I mean, we're seeing decent ownership going to them. Certainly nothing out of hand though. 58 aggregate on DK, 48 over on FanDuel. They're facing a guy in Matt Manning who personally I think is a little bit underrated. They obviously profile well here. We're seeing that massive total, but at the same time, I mean, Manning was a very highly regarded prospect coming up through that Tiger system. Hasn't really looked the part yet. But he does limit power to right-handed bats, which makes it difficult for me to get too aggressive going with Blue Jays bats. But again, I mean, even if they're not hitting the ball out of the park, if they could get into that bullpen, the Tigers do have one of the worst bullpens in baseball. So if they can chase Manning early, crazy upside for them. But if I am going to the Blue Jays, I'll click over to batters now. I think I have one open. You can sort by team and you can kind of see how these guys are going to rate. But at the other screen I'm looking at, I mean, we have Manning allowing a 150 ISO to lefties, only an 072 to right-handed hitters. So obviously there's going to be some liars rather. Guys like George Springer, Vlad Guerrero, Bo Bichette, they can homer off anyone. So you don't have to get too deep in just forcing the lefties. But it's no surprise to me that the highest rated plays here are Brandon Belt and Dalton Varsho. I love Varsho. If you're playing Blue Jays and building Blue Jays stacks, he's kind of my first guy in. Even if you're not using Blue Jays stacks, I mean, we're getting him at pretty reasonable ownership. Wouldn't mind him at all as a one-off. We're seeing a 232 ISO here for him. Then Brandon Belt, dirt cheap on both sites, 2,300 on DK, 2,200 on FanDuel. If you're stacking Cardinals and maybe you skip Goldschmidt as a way to get different, Belt certainly makes it easy to fit someone like Otani and or DeGrom. So yeah, I do like Blue Jays here. I just wish they were a little bit lefty heavy against Matt Manning because Manning is a bit underrated as a starting pitcher against right-handed hitters. But I mean, all that being said, I mean, there's a reason they have a 5.8 run implied team total here. So the Blue Jays are a stack I consider. I just think the total is a little bit inflated and maybe ownership follows that. But like we said at the start of this video, if you're going anywhere other than St. Louis, you're going to be pretty different than most of the field. So the Jays are certainly a stack in play. So good on bringing them up, Zach. Certainly agree with you that they're one that we should be targeting. Now we'll take a look at the Braves here. I'm just taking a look at the lineup of the matchup on my other screen. Yeah, so Luis Sessa, I don't know if everyone knows this yet, but I'm a Yankees fan. Sessa came out of the Yankees bullpen for a couple of years. He's finally stretched out as a starter now, which is good to see. But yeah, he's very mediocre. There's really nothing all that special about him as an arm. So Atlanta, another team, very talented lineup. Whenever you could get one of these super talented offenses at low ownership, almost regardless of the matchup, I'm going to be interested. That's like the Braves, the Dodgers, the Astros when they're healthy, the Yankees when they're healthy, Jays, a few other teams. I mean, when these teams are healthy, pretty much regardless of who they're facing, they have upside. So if you could play them at low ownership in large field tournaments, they're going to be appealing, and that's exactly what we're getting tonight. Look at this. Not a single player in double digit ownership for the Braves. That is a little bit shocking to me. I will say this about Sessa. He has had reverse splits over the past 2 seasons. So right-handed hitters have been doing just as well as the lefties. So while I do agree that Olson's probably the priority here, don't be afraid to play right-handed bats. You don't have to force the lefties like we are with the Blue Jays. And yeah, Olson, Riley, Acuna, Albies. I think Hilliard made the lineup batting ninth. Not crazy about him. He's fine. Sean Murphy, I really like in that cleanup spot. Yeah, the 2% ownership on DK, 1% over on FanDuel. So yeah, the Braves are another stack I really think we want to look long and hard at, especially if you're playing chalky pitching. If you're getting different at pitching, I think you can feel more comfortable going to the Cardinals here. But like I said, personally, I'm building, say, I think I have 25 lineups reserved over on FanDuel. Like just four or five over on DK, mostly single entry stuff, and then I do max out that the beanball I think it is on FanDuel, and I throw a couple in high dollar single entries. But for me, I'm going to be playing some Cardinal stacks. Those will be the lineups where I have different pitching, but I'm going to be under the field on Cardinals and over on teams like this, over on teams like Atlanta, over on teams like the Blue Jays. The Mets are another one I really like against Ryan Weathers. Weathers really hasn't looked good. The one fear there is if they chase him early, that bullpen for San Diego is half decent, so maybe things get a little choppy after that. The Angels I like a lot here as well. That's another team. Unfortunately, though, the sites haven't figured out how to make it so you could play Otani. And Otani against Josiah Gray, who struggles against left-handed power, would probably be the priority bat for the Angels if you were stacking them. So that makes me a little less encouraged to go to them. But let's see, any other questions? Yeah, so if I'm choosing between the Braves and the Jays, Zach, I'd probably go with the Braves. Like I said, I do like the Jays here, see the high total, but they're drawing a lot more ownership than Atlanta is, and at the same time, um, Manning, I think he's not as terrible as maybe bookmakers are making him out to be here. And another reason I think this total is high is it is an indoor game in Toronto. Manning's been better at home, but yeah, the Jays just don't have a ton of lefty power outside of Varsho and Belt. So for me, if I'm choosing between the two, I like Atlanta. They're lower owns, but at the same time, I'm not going to talk anyone off playing Blue Jays. Um, but yeah, let's go to the sites here. I'm gonna start to kind of do a loose build, and so this is not a build I recommend building. But like if you're playing cash games, just look how easy this is. You add Otani, you add Degrom, and then you can go and um, I think pretty easily fit five Cardinals, and that shouldn't be okay. But yeah, I could go Contreras, Goldie, um, our boy Taylor Motter. Probably will maybe leave him out tonight. But yeah, obviously Arenado against the lefty. If you could get Tyler Neal in there, and we're still left with like 2,700 per player, so you could go. I mean, this is only a four man. Add Yepes or Walker. I personally like Walker, really hot rookie. Um, and then yeah, we're left with only 2,700 per player, but then we could go to BGO, a lefty for Toronto, and like this build is obviously amazing. The ceiling is very high. You're getting five Cardinals, two of the best arms on the slate. You could pick a couple one-offs and make it look great. But at the same time, by building this, you are eating all the chalk. You're going to be competing with the rest of the field. It's going to be you. If this all goes well, say Otani pitches well, DeGrom goes well, the Cardinals score 11 runs. It's going to be you against hundreds of other people with almost this exact same lineup, and the little differences are what's going to carry you up and down. Whereas if you don't go with the Cardinals, you stick Otani, DeGrom in there, expect them to have their good games. You got to find a stack that can maybe match that Cardinals output. And honestly, on a 10 game slate, there's a lot of them. We talked through a couple already. I know the wind's blowing out in Wrigley tonight. That's another spot you could look. I mean, the Mariners and Cubs both look fine. Personally, not rushing to get there. Hated Wazensky is actually an underrated arm in my opinion. And while I don't think Flexen's very good, he doesn't allow a ton of power. If I'm choosing between either side of that game, I'd probably get some Cubs. But yeah, it wouldn't shock me to see either of those teams go off. One stack I really like, I want to check their ownership, is the Texas Rangers here. They're only ranking seventh in our OF index. Um, but yeah, pretty high ISO. And the main reason I like them is just because Jordan Lyles is terrible. Um, yeah, I mean, when all else fails, another good way to find stacks. I mean, obviously the stack matrix is going to get you there, but just sort by OF index. I mean, whichever arms are appearing at the bottom here, you could just stack against them and probably feel good about it. We talked about the Braves, we talked about Toronto. Now we're going to talk about Texas as well. We already mentioned the Mets, and obviously St. Louis is there. But these are all major league offenses, so even the terrible offenses have upside against terrible pitching. And it's more likely you're going to find an arm that's going to stink on a night-to-night basis than an entire team of bats. So for me, I love targeting pitchers that don't have very high K rates. We sort by K per IP. And yeah, no surprise, Lyles is pretty low down here. Like I said before, all the stacks we're talking about are against these guys that are not going to be missing bats. So let's go ahead and see what a Texas build looks like. I'm going to clear this. Go back to pitcher, get to Grom Otani in there. Like I said, I'm going to eat chalk at pitcher tonight and just not play many Cardinal stacks in tournaments. And then if they go off, they go off, but I'll have some exposure on FanDuel to kind of cover myself. Maybe bet the team total as a hedge. I mean, now that we have betting legal, there's so many ways you could kind of cover different outcomes. I mean, it starts with playing both sites. Like, say tonight you really like the Cardinals, but you only play them on FanDuel. Don't play them at all on DK. I mean, there's different ways to go about it. Personally, for me, I'll be playing some on FanDuel, probably one or two lineups on DK, and then really nothing else though. And they're going to be super popular. But yeah, let's take a look at this Texas offense. I'm just pulling up some numbers on Lyles on my other screen, so I know exactly which bats I want to target. Another good way to do that though, if you don't want to go digging through stats, I mean, we have the tool. You just go to teams, take Texas. Personally, I like to sort by ISO. But the OF index definitely weighs ISO heavily, so that'll probably get you to the same place regardless. But yeah, this team total's pushing 6 now. We got four guys around 200 plus. So low Garcia, Seager, Semien priorities. Heim homered last night. He's cheap. I like low. Semien. Jung's a good rookie. I mean, I don't want to skip Seager though. So what do we got? We got one, two, three, four, and then I mean Garcia is great. So that leaves us with 2,600 per player. But then you could go and get some of those Cardinal value bats as one-offs if you want. Like I would go get Walker. What the hell? Wrong Walker. The other Walker. Um, and then maybe Yepez if he fits. I don't know. No, he doesn't fit. But that's okay. Um, what else is cheap? I don't know. But you pretty much get where I'm at. Like, you want to build 5-man stacks, get away from the Cardinals in most of your lineups. If you're playing cash games or small field single entry stuff, though, definitely load up on Cardinals. They are the best on the board. It's just the way MLB works is most nights, not most nights, but plenty of nights we're going to see the top stack fail. And when we're seeing ridiculous ownership like this, um, yeah, it's a spot you probably want to get away from. 198% on DK, 156% on FanDuel. And for those of you who've been playing MLB DFS for years, I know there's been plenty of times where you're messaging your friends or whoever's in your Discord saying, Cy Freeland, he's back again. And yeah, Kyle Freeland, not a great arm. And I love the Cardinals against lefties, don't get me wrong. But am I going to be surprised if they put up 3 or 4 runs tonight on no home runs and they kind of ruin most lineups? No, not at all. So you want to just make sure you're not stuck on that. In cash games, though, they're just too cheap. Like I said, you shouldn't be able to put Otani, DeGrom, and 5 Cardinals in a lineup, but you can. So small field and cash, I'm still going there. Um, oh, we got Sean V. Springer and Vlad were actually way better in the power department last season versus right-handed pitching. Yeah, I mean that's a small sample, Sean. I mean, I guess that's something you could take a look at. I don't mind Jankowski, who you mentioned at 2K. I think we do need to look at guys who steal bases more this year. I don't know that projections have really caught up with that yet, but we're seeing steals certainly much more prevalent than they were in years past. But yeah, Springer and Vlad totally fine with them. But like I said before, I really like the lefties against Manning. But guys like Springer and Vlad, I mean, they could homer off anyone. Yeah, I mean, if they were facing DeGrom, it wouldn't shock me if they homered off him. But I mean, statistically speaking, I'm definitely going to try to get to the lefties first. There's a reason that's a 5.8 total there, and I'm never going to tell anyone stacking Blue Jays not to play Vlad or what's his name, Springer. And then yeah, Jankowski, he's not on the Blue Jays. What team is he on? Let me look. Oh, Rangers. Yeah, okay. So yeah, he's another guy on the Rangers I like at 2K flat. I mean, do I still have that build up? So yeah, let's pull. I mean, I really like Garcia. I don't know that we need one, two, three, four, five. I don't want to pull high. So yeah, I guess we pull Garcia. See what that does. If you want to put in Jankowski, I mean, personally, I love Adalis. Um, but yeah, I mean, you get a 2K flat player, you're definitely dealing with better one-offs, and that's going to make you very different if you're not going to have Adalis in there. I think more likely than pulling Garcia though, I'd probably pull Heim. There's just a ton of cheap catchers with upside. So many damn Garcias in the MLB. We got Adalis there. So yeah, 2,900 per player. We got Simeon. I should probably refresh this to get the starting lineups in. That's what I should probably do. So I'll do that now. But yeah, really, really interesting slate as far as tournaments are concerned. Just taking a look at some of the other stacks now. We talked through some of the best ones. Again, any stack that isn't the Cardinals is reasonably owned tonight. I wish we could play Otani with the Angels. I'd probably talk through them. I mean, the Rockies are getting overlooked, and I mean, everyone's loading up on the Cardinals and cores, but it wouldn't shock me to see uh, Colorado do pretty well here against Miles. I mean, the thing about Mikolas is he is usually a ground ball pitcher, and those are the guys that actually do find success in cores. Um, 44% ground ball rate dating back to the start of 2022. Pretty high hard contact rate, but again, if they're ground balls and they're hit hard, that really doesn't matter. Um, and yeah, kind of decent xFIP on him as well. So I just really don't love Colorado here. If you do want to go with Colorado bats, I'd probably favor lefties. It's just the lefties have been mostly cold to start the season. McMahon, they took Blackman out of the lineup tonight. I don't know if he's hurt or what, but that's obnoxious because I'd like them a lot better if Charlie Blackman was in there. Um, but let's see. I'll stay on another 5 minutes or so. Be sure to get your questions in. Happy to answer any questions at all. We'll talk through another stack or two. We're seeing really good numbers on Seattle and Chicago again with that wind blowing out. Decent arms there. Really, really like Texas. I mentioned the Angels. Again, I wish we had Otani. Zach brought up Atlanta and Toronto, two really solid options. San Diego, I don't really want to talk through San Diego. But I know we like the Mets. I think we have them 2 in OF index. That'll be the next one we talk through. This time let's do it on FanDuel. Um, so for me, I like DeGrom a little more than Otani. Just a little bit more consistent. Obviously, they have similar upside. Both have massive ceilings. Um, but yeah, let's say we're getting away from Cardinals bats. I'm going to start with some Mets. And let's just go to the stacks tool. Oh, no, the batters tool. Pull up the Mets. And I know we got a ton of them. We also have good value on Francisco Alvarez today. Super prospect. I know he was top 10 in Baseball America. He got a call up late last year. Didn't look great. It sucks that he's batting ninth in the order. But if you're looking to pay up elsewhere, I mean, Francisco Alvarez certainly a prospect worth considering. But first and foremost, I mean, get Pete Alonso in your lineups. He looks great right now. Marte, Escobar. Yeah, there's a lot of Mets bats I like. So on FanDuel, it's tricky. If you want to go Alvarez for cheap, you have to play him at that utility spot. I don't mind doing that. I'll go ahead and do it. But then, yeah, we're kind of looking at a wraparound stack then. So we want to make sure we get correlation. We don't want these guys to be too far apart in the batting order. So we got Alvarez ninth, Alonso fourth. So which righties in between? I mean, I like Canha and Escobar. So that's a decent little stack. And it's very cheap. I think we're going to be left with over 3,300 per player. So, um, yeah, then maybe we go to Texas because I know they have an expensive shortstop and second baseman and Semien and Seager. The issue is with DeGrom, we're not going to be able to play four of them, but that actually gives us some flexibility for our final one-off. Maybe we get someone like Trout in there. Um, and yeah, this is a really good lineup. Where's Garcia? Oh, I'm sorting. I mean, then you go to all players. What are we getting at 36? I mean, you could get a Soto one off. Probably want to go there. Chris Bryant, Buxton. Or if you pay down from Garcia, you want to get Trout. Let's see what Texas guy that leaves us with. I'm guessing Grossman, Bubba Thompson, something like that. Bubba Thompson, right there. Boom. So this is a nice one. We got the Grom, we got the four-man Met stack with all their best ISO players against lefties. We got some of the best bats for Texas, and then a little Mike Trout one-off with Jacob DeGrom. So that's a really solid build. Not a single Cardinal, but plenty of upside. Really like that. I'm gonna take another look, see if we get any questions. Um, some good stats from Sean V. Appreciate it, man. Definitely appreciate the engagement. Josiah Gray threw 104 pitches and cores with 18 swings and misses. Yeah, I mean that's the thing about Gray. He's actually pretty damn good against right-handed hitters. It's just the same way we talk about um, some of those Blue Jays bats. Like I'm gonna play Mike Trout against anyone and not feel too badly about it. If you don't want to go Trout, I mean there's plenty of options. I mean when you pay up all the way for a one-off, the beauty of that is if you don't want to stick to that guy, you have anyone else you can go to. So maybe we go Acuna. That could maybe upgrade the Bubba Thompson to something else from Texas. So take a look. Yeah, then we can get Grossman. So yeah, if you want to go down to Acuna up to Grossman, I mean, you wouldn't when you get to that point. I mean, you're kind of just splitting hairs. Um, we see the studs on any given night can homer off anyone. But at the same time, I mean, if you're only playing one lineup, these are the types of micro decisions I do like to kind of dig in and make. So, shouts out, Sean. Those definitely make sense. Varsho, yeah, Zach, major key for me. Love Dalton Varsho here. He's my favorite Jays bat just because, again, Matt Manning actually a decent arm against right-handed hitters. Obviously, guys like Vlad and Springer, they have just as much upside, but Varsho, you're going to get a little bit uh, overlooked. And yeah, I want to prioritize lefties. And the Blue Jays, I like that move they made in the offseason. I know they gave up Gurriel to the D-backs, but they really needed more lefty power in that order. We got Belt and Biggio. Belt's okay. I do like Belt if you're stacking Blue Jays, but Varsho's like a real big bat. So I really like some Dalton Varsho tonight. If you're stacking Blue Jays, he's a priority for me. Obviously, you want to get guys like Vlad, and I don't think you could play both Vlad and Belt on DK, but yeah, that's unfortunate because those are probably two of my favorites, but I really do like Varsho. I just wanted to pull up his stats real quick and show you why. Um, but again, it's really splits with Matt Manning, and we see this a lot. It's the same with Josiah Gray. Um, I don't know. There's some people who don't believe too deeply in splits. For me, if we're making these micro decisions, I think they do matter. And we're seeing Varsho 232 ISO against right-handed hitting, or right-handed pitching rather. To 341 WOBA, second highest rated player on the OF index, actually rating above Vlad statistically today, which is surprising. So, really like Varsho, Belt, Vlad. I mean, here's the thing though, if you're stacking Blue Jays on DK, I think everyone goes to Belt for that value. Really easy way to get different. Pay up for Vlad Guerrero. So that's another one. And then yeah, I mean, I wouldn't look too deep into that, Sean. I mean, slumps happen, but guys like Trout, I mean, I don't know. He really let me down last night. I had close to 100% against Patrick Corbin, and it sucks. But at the same time, you gotta have a short memory. Um, and I don't know. I think maybe that drives his ownership down. If it doesn't, and he's super chalky, maybe that's enough to get you off him. But for me, yeah, I mean, 11, 15%. If I'm stacking Angels and I can't use Otani, I just feel like I have to use Trout. Um, but yeah, any other questions, guys? Just last call, 6:27 Eastern on my clock right now. Definitely signing off um, with 3 minutes left. And yeah, I know. I also had Angels team total last night over 5.5 runs. I had Trout props to homer. Trout. I think we had Trout bases in the article. Um, so super unfortunate, but he still rates as the best play on the slate. And again, I mean, all the time we see these guys have off nights and then suddenly get it together. So I don't want to look too deeply into that. Um, but yeah, I mean, and if it was tougher to pay up, then I'd probably feel stronger against it. But at the same time, it's so easy to build today, even with the top pitchers. There's just so many value bats, especially now with stolen bases being more prevalent. It's just really easy to kind of mix things in. But once again, thanks everyone for joining. If you're not already a member of Occupy Fantasy, check the links in the description below. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. That tells my superiors that we need to do more of these live streams. Also, find me on FanDuel at Nick Marro DFS. I'm going to go start building. And again, if you're playing cash, get all the Cardinals in your lineup. If you're playing large field tournaments, less Cardinals is probably more. So tough slate tonight. Should be a fun one. Good luck, everyone. Take care. Let's make some money.